You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Mark D. Shirian, New York litigation attorney and founding member of Mark David Shirian PC in New York City. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on. What's up in New York? Does it feel like New York City again? I love New York. I lived in New Haven for a while. Take the Metro North down to Yankee Stadium. What's popping there? Is it getting back to normal?
It definitely has. I think since Fashion Week, things have really picked up, and it finally feels like it's back to normal. Although I haven't been on the subway since the pandemic, but things are definitely a lot better than it was.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's good to hear. So let's just start by saying we will feature you soon on the Lawyer Stories feed on Instagram, lawyer_stories, and on Facebook. I'm looking forward to it. You have a good story. Tell us all, where are you from?
I'm from a town right outside of New York City called Great Neck.
Okay.
Actually, if you've ever read The Great Gatsby, I'm from West Egg.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, lived in Great Neck at the time he wrote the book. So that's where I'm from.
Excellent. Okay. So you have a reference for that. That's really cool. When was the moment that you knew you wanted to be a lawyer? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was a combination of several things. At one time, I really wanted to be a sports agent, and I watched Jerry Maguire when I was a young kid, and there are several law school references in that movie. But what really did it for me was another movie. I watched Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington in health class. I think it was sophomore or junior year of high school. And it was that one scene, I don't know if you remember that scene where he was asked on the stand if he was a good lawyer. And he said he was an excellent lawyer. And then he said, I love the law. I love how not always, but sometimes justice is served. And it's a beautiful thing. And ever since I watched that scene, it was just something that I was always interested in.
Really? So it was just a really compelling scene. It really kind of hit you in some sort of way, huh?
It just felt natural. When I watched that movie, I just felt like this is something that I really need to pursue. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to fight for people. And I have a wrestling background. So I wrestled in high school. I then wrestled at NYU.
Yep.
And then I coached wrestling for I can't believe it was 6 years. 6 years, I was a head wrestling coach at a private high school on Long Island. And litigation is a lot like wrestling. It's two sides.
Yep.
The judge is a lot like the referee.
Yep.
You won or lost before you walk in. You got to really prepare, but you got to be quick on your feet, and you got to fight, right. And you can't give up so quickly when things are getting bad. So I think my background as a wrestler and just my personality in fighting for the underdog and using my skills with what I have, it was just a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit to be a litigator.
That's great. And I think on your website, you even talk about being an aggressive attorney, right? Yes. I think the word, you have 4 words in there. I did not write it down, but I think aggressive was one of it. And, you see that often, but as a wrestler, look, you got to be pretty intense. You know what I mean? So I think that comes when you said you have to be quick on your feet. Like what exactly does that mean to be like quick on your feet? I know if the judge asks you a question, it's like going through the Socratic method in law school, but for you, like what does that mean? Like what would happen where you have to be quick on your feet?
Right, that's one example, a judge. But it could be with an adversary.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
It could be in, yeah, even writing an opposition to a motion, being creative, quick to make arguments, and you know, just yes, there are times where you have the time to sit and think about things and digest things, and then submit a response. But when I've been in the press a lot. You got to be quick on your feet with the press.
Right.
I've
That's true.
conducted press conferences. You got to be quick on your feet in
Do you
those
think
situations.
that's something, Mark? Do you think that that's something that you can learn, or is that something that's sort of like you build up over the years by doing different things, like activities, like being a wrestler or being an athlete?
No, I think it's definitely something that you can learn. You're never really going to know until you're in those positions. You're gonna get better at it. I don't think that's something you're born with. I mean, you got to know what you're talking about. That's the other thing. Being quick on your feet, but also being able to make non-frivolous arguments
Right.
that actually make sense. Because if you don't, and you're caught up in a fib, it just looks so bad, and it's you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your client any favors. So, but yes, it's definitely something that can be learned. It's not something that's natural.
So tell us about your law school experience. You went to NYU undergrad, which obviously that's a wonderful school. You're a true New Yorker. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm guessing you just seem like you're straight up New York, which is awesome. Like what was your experience like at New York Law School?
I have to say the professors were excellent there. I thought that they really did a good job with getting top-notch professors there. I had my friends from college. I went right into law school. You have to think 2009 was a very depressing time. The recession, people were losing jobs. And I wanted to be in New York. It worked out with New York law. I was looking at other schools. It didn't work out. But look, I went there and I really focused on my studies. I didn't really socialize with many people there. I think I go back to the whole 2009 thing. And it also, it plays into how I started my own firm. I think I always was like, my mindset was I was going to work very hard, get good grades, get a good job, go the corporate route. And that's what I thought I was going to do. And when I saw what was going on, and I don't know if you remember, but smart people were losing their jobs. And it's kind of like what happened with this pandemic.
Right.
And it completely changed my mindset. And I was like, you know what? I want to work for myself. I want to have my own firm. And I was blessed while I was in school, I worked at firms where the founders were young. The founders, but they were also into their families. They also had a life outside of work, very successful. And to me, that was more stability than working for somebody else. So I worked a lot in law school. That was my experience.
Okay.
I wasn't really, I wasn't banking on my grades to get a good job at a law school. I worked hard. I tried my best, but at the same time, I worked a tremendous amount to get knowledge and to get
you have to
connections.
And you got to do that. You have to do it on your own too, because unless you're doing externships and clinicals, like you're not going to get it. So that's like actually a really good thing that you did for your career.
It all worked out. because the space that I'm in now, you know, long story short, I interned for someone in law school and he ended up on this floor, and that's how I was able to get space on this floor. And, you know, as a solo practitioner, you know, you need, starting out as a solo, I have an associate now, but you need to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that you trust.
Okay.
And get advice. And the people that I can go to are people that I met while I was in law school, which was over 10 years ago. So if someone, whoever's listening is in law school, I highly recommend just meeting as many people as you can that are attorneys are the type of attorneys that you want to be.
Yeah, it's good advice.
And I just, I always, when I saw how things were going, that's just what inspired me to start my own firm.
So I think that leads me to my next question, which you sort of just answered, which was like, what would be your advice to first year law students, which I think you just said, like, get out there, networking, meet as many people as you can in law school, right?
Well, I have a better piece of advice.
Let's hear it. We love advice.
Don't focus on anyone else but yourself.
I like it.
Because people, and I've told that I've given the same advice to others who are younger than me. And when they're done with law school, several of them have been like, you know what, I've got so much advice during law school, but that was the best piece of advice that I got. Don't focus on what other people are doing. And I think it's the same as opening up a law firm in New York City. Do you know how many people said I was too young, that I don't know what I'm doing, that it's so hard, there's so many lawyers? I've never focused on my competition. I quite frankly don't care, because I know how I do things. I know what I bring to the table, and I don't really care what my competitors are doing. I have to focus on myself, focus on my clients, and I don't have time to worry about what other people are doing and all that. So I think going back to the first year of law school, if I was focusing on people going on interviews and getting this job and being on law review, and it would take away from what I was trying to build and really getting to know myself and my skills. And so yes, focus on yourself. Don't focus on anybody else.
Okay.
And it will go very far.
I love that. I think that's great advice. So did you work for anybody out of school, or did you go right to opening your firm? Like, what was your first job like out of law school?
So it was interesting. So I worked at a personal injury law firm out in Queens, and they were primarily a Korean law firm, where they had a big hold on the Korean market out in Queens, New York. And I have to tell you, it was the best job that I had. I think all the jobs that I had, 2 jobs out of law school, and I started my own firm. Before I graduated law school, I was at a firm for over 2 years, and I thought I would get a job, and I ended up not getting a job, and it was upsetting. These are guys that I really looked up to, and it didn't work out. But I'll tell you, I'm so glad it didn't, because if it did, I'd probably still be working there.
Yeah.
And I would have never had the confidence to go out and see what the free market holds for me. But my first job was at a Korean law firm in Queens, and it was very hands-on, and I learned a tremendous amount. And my boss then is still a huge mentor in my life. He really helped me start my own firm. When I started my own firm, I did a lot of per diem work for him, and he's always supported me. He always believed in me, and you so really need someone who is there for you. Now, my second job was at a firm downtown. It doesn't exist anymore. It's called Lynch Rowan, and they did a lot of litigation for Sears, Kmart, AT&T, They were a much bigger firm in the 80s, as you could imagine, having clients like that.
I was going to say, I could probably guess why they're not around.
But by the time I was there, it was 4 partners and I was the only associate. And the 4 partners that I worked with were tremendous. One of them was, graduated Harvard Law in the 70s, 40 years of litigation experience. And they just helped. I learned a tremendous amount under them. And they were very supportive of my career. They were more of a defense-oriented firm. I went there because I wasn't getting any real benefits at the first firm that I was at. And they were like, Mark, you know what? If you bring in your own cases, we'll give you a cut. We'll help you out with those cases. We'll teach you. And I wasn't making that much working for them, but the knowledge that I learned, you can't put a price on that. And they allowed me to develop my own client base. And after a certain amount of time, I was bringing in a good amount of legal fees.
How did you do that? As a young attorney?
Listen, you got to meet as many people as you can, and you got to tell them what you do. I look at the referrals that I get now. Oh, I went to that party and I met so-and-so and her brother-in-law needed an attorney. Or, I was outside of my office before I started my firm, and a construction worker was like, are you a lawyer? Are you an employment lawyer? I feel like I was racially discriminated against. And we started talking, and I looked into it, and I presented the case at the EEOC, and we got him a settlement. And that was my first ever client, at my own firm. But my point is, you just got to meet as many people as you possibly can. When I went to court, now I don't go to court because of everything going on. Everything's virtual. But when I used to go to court, I dressed up very nicely, and people will come up to you. People will start talking to you. Hey, do you do divorces? Do you do? And I just started meeting as many people as I possibly could. Yes, I've been in New York for a long time, so I know a lot of people here, but I've met a lot of people here, and I've gotten to know a lot of people here. And that's been the greatest thing about having a law firm in New York City. I really met the people that make this city, not the people on Madison Avenue, but the people that live in the outer boroughs that make this city run. And I've been blessed with unbelievable clients that even after the case is over, call me up. How are you doing? How's your family? What's going on? I just wanted to check up on you. So going back to everything, it's just, you got to meet as many people as you can. Don't be shy. And that's how I've met my mentors. I got very close with a high profile attorney in New York, who I've become very good friends with. And I saw him out one night and I introduced myself. And I think when you go up to people and you're not asking them for a job, but you're asking them for advice, people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
And I, the employment part of my firm, he doesn't really handle. And we've had a great relationship because I had, the confidence to go up to him while he was out and just introduce myself.
Right.
And it's been, that's the big thing that I think separates me from, I started this firm at 29 years old. And it's been 5 years already. And it's been an unbelievable ride. I mean, it's because I've really I wasn't shy with telling people about what I do and how well I do it.
And mentors are so important. That's something I ask, I think mentors in the legal profession are very important. So what advice would you give to somebody thinking of starting their own firm? I feel like we're doing things retro. I think it would be what you said, get yourself out there, but I'll let you answer this. What advice would you give for somebody wanting to start their own firm?
If I could go back in time, what people need to understand is, and I've learned this the hard way, there's a difference between confidence and self-esteem. Okay. And to be a force and I don't care if you have your own firm or not, you need both to really to feel good about what you're doing. And I think the thing that I struggled with was, I think I always had the confidence, but some of the things that were said to me by people that in my circle when I was starting out, putting doubt in my head. You don't have enough experience. You're not old enough. Maybe you should just get a job. This was a dream that I had, to have my own firm.
Yeah.
Like, I always wanted this. So I think some of those comments messed with my self-esteem. And when things don't go right, you start being very hard on yourself. And being hard on yourself gets you very far, but it doesn't make you feel good about what you're doing. And I think giving advice to someone starting their own firm, have self-esteem, believe in yourself, take care of yourself, understand that you are good enough to, I've caught older attorneys, experienced attorneys in mistakes. I've gone up against billion-dollar companies. I don't have any fear when it comes to things like that. And I had to do a lot of work before I started this firm to really believe in myself and love myself. It sounds cheesy, but
I get it.
really goes a long way. But I think also evaluating a case. Don't be afraid to take on cases. There are cases now where if it came through my door, someone said to me when I started out, "Oh, you practice door law." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Oh, well, any case that comes through the door, you take." And to an extent, that was true. That was right. But every case that's come in that I've taken hasn't always been a winner, but I've learned a tremendous amount from each case. Mm-hmm. So I think as you get older and more experienced, you understand, you have a better ability to decipher what's a good case and what's a bad case. Because look, when you're starting out, you don't really know. It's different when you're the one calling the shots. But then again, I've taken cases that other attorneys have thrown out and turned them into multiple six-figure settlements.
Yeah.
So you never know, but don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to bet on yourself, believe in yourself, and work through it all. Work through it all.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Getting a lot of advice from you, counselor. We appreciate that. So, what sets you apart then from other young attorneys your age?
Well, I don't think many attorneys my age have built what I've built in New York City. I've really focused on the younger market. If you go on my on Instagram, I'm the Millennial Lawyer on Instagram. And I don't think many firms are really focusing on this younger demographic that you could have as a client for your entire career. But I really treat my clients like family. I will lose sleep over a client. I'll lose my appetite over a client. I don't really see many attorneys. I mean, it's very easy to say that. It's so easy to say I treat my clients like family, but really showing it and being sincere with it is something that I think really sets me apart. It's a different. I take a hands-on approach, and I take on a case. I'm married to the case, and it's personal for me, and I fight like it's my own family member. And that was advice that I got from one of my first ever clients. I asked her, "Should we do this? Should we do that? It's up to you." She said, "You know what? I'm going to trust you, and I want you to guide me as if I was one of your family members." This was my first ever client. And I've always that's how I've treated my clients after she said that. And It's worked. And I think clients have felt that difference. So those are some things that have set me apart. And I've been in the press a lot. I don't think many young attorneys have had the have had the opportunities that I've had as far as getting cases that were newsworthy in the press and getting notoriety thereafter.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Total sense. So like what kind of activities did you participate in, like outside of the law before launching your legal career?
Like I said, I was a coach for 6 years at a private school on Long Island, which was the best experience that I had. And I think it changed my mindset. Going back to 2009, when I started my law firm, when I started law school, I think my mindset was, I got to get a good job. I got to make a lot of money. I didn't really care about other people. I thought success was just I'm only powerful as an attorney. That's my identity and all that.
Right.
Okay. While I was in law school, I got an opportunity to coach at a private school. It was only supposed to be for a year because then it would interfere with studying for the bar.
Right.
And this experience completely changed my mindset. I learned that true success is helping others succeed. The teenagers that I coached were all very different. We had some with intellectual disabilities. We had some that were quiet and just needed to find themselves. I dealt with so many different personalities and characters as a coach that has helped me tremendously dealing with different types of clients, different types of adversaries, different types of judges. So I learned that true success is helping other people succeed. And it goes back to what I said earlier about wrestling and that being very similar to litigation. That was one activity that was very helpful for me as an attorney, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a human being, helping people become successful and giving a piece of yourself. As attorneys, we have talents in our own way. We know the law, we give advice, and you want to give right advice. So, just being in these positions where we're helping and making their lives better. So the coaching was very influential.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. For sure. So like, yeah, coaching must be like a great experience. That's something I definitely want to do at some point. So like, sort of a random question, but still on topic. Like, how do you feel that COVID has like changed the practice of law there in New York?
I'll be honest with you. I was exhausted before COVID. Because, you go to Brooklyn, you have a case in Brooklyn, you have a case in the Bronx. You're running around to court.
Yeah.
Half the day's done for one case because for a compliance conference or for a motion appearance. And you're just not productive. You are running around every day. And I was just exhausted. And I think I was a bit unorganized. And COVID, I believe COVID has got me a lot more organized. The virtual proceedings as a plaintiff's attorney has made things much easier.
More efficient, I would think.
Efficient in my business.
Yeah.
But so in that sense, yes, it is. I think it's more efficient. From what I'm hearing from the judiciary, they like the virtual aspect of things, and I don't think that's something that's going to go away. But on the other hand, I handle case. If you're handling car accidents, I guess virtuals is not a big deal. But I have sex assault cases, I have sex harassment cases, and sometimes those sensitive cases, it's better to be in person.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
So what I've done has been I've brought clients in my conference room, socially distant, but when we're doing mediations or conferences where I rather them be in the same vicinity,
Okay.
I've invited them to my office. But no, but on the other hand, you want to meet with people in person. When you're taking on a case, you want to be able to evaluate them in person. So there are pros and cons to it, but I think the future, we're on the right track. It hasn't been as bad as they've been reporting. But there's a certain feeling you get when you walk into a courtroom.
Yeah.
And I do miss that. It's an adrenaline rush
Right.
that I always got when I
Yeah.
walked into the
Yeah,
courtroom.
I feel that. That makes a lot of sense. So like, where do you see your firm in like 5 to 10 years?
Well, I've done things very organically. You know, I didn't have a website until 2 years ago. It was all word of mouth, and I just built things very, very organically. This past January, I actually hired my brother, who
Yep.
is an attorney,
Yep.
who has done a really nice job of, he accuses me of being old school and, with technology and the way I go.
Like you don't let him, like when you need to research a case, like you don't let him use Lexis, he has to use the books.
Exactly. Well, not, you know what I'm saying. But I learned from, older attorneys that I have so much respect for, but he's come in and really revamped the technology,
That's
the
great.
software that we use. And it's been great having him. But I really want to grow my firm into other cities. I've
Okay.
had so many clients because of this pandemic leave New York and still reach out to me and say, hey, one even told me, I'll invest in you, take the Texas bar.
Wow.
We need an attorney like you down here.
That's
Or,
awesome.
I was recently in LA. I feel like that's a market that I would do well in with
Yep.
the practice areas that I handle. But yeah, growing the firm, more attorneys, more staff, more clients, and in different cities. There's definitely room for growth. I know I have not reached my potential, even though I'm satisfied with what I've accomplished in my career so far, but I know that I'm destined for a lot more.
That's awesome.
I'm ready.
That's awesome. And like I think we touched on it, but like, what is your bread and butter in terms of like, I know you handle a lot of different cases. You've mentioned employment, and like, just tell us what those cases are, what areas.
So I would say my firm is a hybrid between employment discrimination and injury cases.
Okay.
So with the employment discrimination, a lot of sexual harassment cases, a lot of, I think age discrimination is going to be something we're going to see a lot. A lot of baby
Yep.
boomers are getting older and can't necessarily retire at the age they want to. And they're making a certain salary, and employers are driving them out because it's easier to get two younger people in there. So age discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, disability discrimination, you name it. Housing discrimination has been a huge thing. So the discrimination gamut, and then we have an injury component. We do car accident cases, slip and falls, medical malpractice, and those type of cases, which they're very symbiotic. It's litigation. It's different, but it's similar in the same sense. And we also do a little bit of sports and entertainment litigation. We have several cases with former college athletes in cases against their universities. We've handled Title IX cases.
Okay.
Which are very complex and interesting. And we have some copyright cases as well, so that are very interesting. So
that's awesome.
But that's the beauty of having your own firm. I get to work on matters that mean a lot to me. And I might not have been in business if I just focused on one thing. I know now people are like, focus on one thing and that's how you'll grow. First of all, I'm having a lot of fun doing what I want to do. But the hybrid of the two, the employment and the injury, many firms either do one or the other, and many don't do both. And I think that's what has kept me at the forefront of a lot of different things and has been a big key to my success, not really pigeonholing myself into one thing. And, I'm having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And like,
It does get stressful, but I feel good about what I'm doing.
good. And that's what's important, right? So so do you have any regrets thus far?
I wish I wasn't so hard on myself
Okay.
starting off. I wish I had a bit more compassion for who I was becoming. I think, once you pass the bar and you get admitted, you think like, all right, well, what's the difference between me and so-and-so? And the difference is 20 years of success, 20 years of mistakes, 20 years of being in it, and you just don't have it. So don't be so hard on yourself that you're
Right.
not in that position. So yeah, that's the one regret, not just being a little too hard on myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think we covered a lot, Mark. Like, is there anything that I missed that you'd like to tell the Lawyer Stories community here?
That's about it. It's a noble profession. We need professionals who are compassionate and really believe in what they're doing to make a difference in people's lives.
I like that. That makes sense. And hey, if you're on Instagram and ever see somebody that you want to connect with, like through Lawyer Stories, let me know. I'd be happy to make like a
Definitely will.
I'll be happy to make a warm introduction. There's definitely New York attorneys that I've worked with, and that we can sort of connect you that way if it's a good referral source, Lawyer Stories. So we're happy to do that for you.
Thank you.
And yeah, of course, stay right there. And if there's nothing else to be said, Mark, just tell everybody out there, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.